Hello and welcome back to another episode of Colour With Me, where I, the Black Gallerina, talk about decolonial theory, curatorial practice and contemporary art galleries while colouring away. In this video, I'll be talking about the ways in which galleries and cultural institutions uphold the hostile environment and how these environments shape the experiences of people of colour within these spaces. In the background, I'll be colouring a picture of a character design I created for this project I've been working on. She's a high priestess and she's probably one of my favourite characters out of the set because she's devoted to caring for her community. For tools, I'll be using Ohuhu markers and some Arteza colouring pencils. As always, you can find more information about these materials in the description of this video. With all that said, let's get colouring. The term of today's video is the hostile environment. The Migrants in Culture Research Report describes the hostile environment as a set of administrative and legislative measures launched in 2012 and legislated in the Immigration Act 2014 and 2016, designed to make life in the UK as difficult as possible for people without leave to remain in the hope that they may voluntarily leave. Policy forces landlords, banks, hospitals and employers, including universities and cultural institutions, to act as proxy border agents in their daily interactions with their patients, tenants, staff and students. The hostile environment creates a culture of fear and distrust and impacts anyone deemed to look foreign. Although the hostile environment is a concept that emerged in the 21st century, it's a concept which I feel really highlights how post-imperial Britain uses institutions, policy and practices to exclude and marginalise people of colour from countries that Britain had previously colonised and destabilised. Because of the British Empire, it is very difficult to discuss British culture without talking about the impact of things like immigration, the Commonwealth, and the coerced and voluntary contributions made to British society by former imperial subjects. However, the reactions from the UK Home Office over the years have shown that even though that generations of people of colour have contributed to building the society Britain now is, xenophobia is still ingrained and sometimes encouraged through our institutions. I began thinking about gallery cultures alongside the concept of the hostile environment when I hosted an online discussion which had representatives from the organisations Migrants in Culture and This Too Is Real. It was an amazing discussion where we talked about how often cultural institutions claim to be inclusive while having practices in place which prevent people of colour and migrants from being able to work within and engage in those spaces. We also discussed the definition of borders in general and how it's common to think of borders as only physical things that define and separate countries. However, borders and border policing can also manifest in the form of social interactions and cultural practices within institutions. Conversation made me think about how some galleries are quick to claim credit for creating inclusive environments when it comes to performing diversity, but in practice fail to do the work. It made me think back to seeing galleries confidently post black squares in solidarity with Black Lives Matter and putting out statements about being against racial discrimination, whilst knowing that multiple people of colour have experienced racism within their spaces. Above all, it was interesting to see these galleries position themselves as creative spaces that challenge discrimination rather than spaces that perpetrated it. As a black artist and curator, what I wanted to see was at least some acknowledgement from these institutions of contributing to environments that made certain communities feel like they do not belong in their spaces. I think that talking about the hostile environment and borders in this way provided me with helpful terminology to describe how seemingly individual incidents of racism within galleries connect to wider structural discrimination. For a long time, I have been trying to explain that while galleries like to convey racist incidents as oversights, accidents, unpredictable mistakes, these things don't just happen. They are the results of people of colour being systematically neglected and marginalised within the process of cultural production. when I put a call out for people to share their experiences of institutional racism in galleries for my online exhibition Gallery So White. I saw that the hostile environment was a prominent theme in many of the submissions. Sometimes it manifested in an explicit way, such as the policing of Black and people of colour by security guards who act like border police protecting the purity of spaces reserved for the white elite. For example, one submission from a Black curator who was commissioned for a show said, "We had problems with the security. On more than one occasion, they mistook us for gallery goers as opposed to being curators and artists of the show. They were extremely racist in their approach to us, even when we had corrected them." There was another submission from someone who was employed by a gallery but still experienced similar issues. Within the list of examples of racism that they had faced at work, they included frequently stopped by security asking to see your photo pass because you don't have a uniform on, presumably because it would appear that only white people seem to have the privilege not to wear one. When you point it out, you are told that they are simply just doing their job, despite the white staff members ahead or behind you not being asked to evidence their right to be in the building. As well as experiences with non-curatorial staff, there were submissions which highlighted racism within creative teams too. One person said, "There was no interest in diversity or inclusion. I often heard colleagues come out with xenophobic comments about people coming over here and taking our jobs, rhetoric, and cultural stereotypes. There was no one to complain to. Many people experienced bullying. There was a culture of fear." I believe that what these kinds of submissions show is that while the contemporary art scene often presents itself as diverse and inclusive, behind closed doors, the hostile environment is something which really has a detrimental impact on cultural equity. I think that a curator who wants to actively change this toxic culture must strive to produce the opposite of a hostile environment. However, I think that the responsibility of creating an inclusive environment for members of the public to enjoy art and culture is one shared with people beyond the curatorial staff team too. In order to design exhibitions and run galleries in ways which makes it as easy as possible for everyone to be engaged, a transformative change in attitudes, behaviours and practices is required across all departments. Well, that's it for this episode of Colour With Me. I hope that you found that interesting. Also, if you like videos like this, please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. Please also don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future uploads. Thank you for watching, take care and see you soon.